One day, a virus as strong as SARS or as deadly as SARS and as contagious as COVID-19 will make its way around the planet, and we need to get ready. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. COVID-21, lethal virus. Now, I hear you going, COVID-21? I thought it was COVID-19. Well, it is COVID-19. It's actually SARS-CoV-2. That's the name of the virus. COVID-19 is the name of the disease it produces. But this was in yesterday's Financial Times. And I find it absolutely fascinating. I've been reading the Financial Times for years and years, and they sometimes get into this stuff, in depth. And what they're pointing out is that SARS and MERS and COVID, they're all coronaviruses. They all jumped from bats into a middle species and then into humans. They are all the result of humans expanding our footprint around the world into the wilderness, where the estimated 10,000 viruses that have not been identified that might be human pathogens live. And in this article, it's by David Crow, it's in the Financial Times, FT.com, and it's titled, "The Next Virus Pandemic is Not Far Away." And COVID-21, Lethal Virus, is the name of a TV movie that's in post-production right now. And it hypothesizes that a virus that is as contagious as COVID, but as deadly as SARS. You'll recall SARS killed about half the people who got it. COVID is killing about 4% of the people who get it. So, a virus that is as lethal as SARS, but and SARS was not that contagious. I mean, it was highly contagious compared to a lot of things, but it was more contagious actually by contact. Remember the original case, the first case out of Hong Kong was a guy who got it from pushing an elevator button, and he took it with him to Canada, as I recall. And then they locked it down in Canada, in around Toronto, someplace, and they finally stopped that virus. But so there's this movie that is saying, what happens if large chunks of humanity get this and actually die? That said, I mean, we're now on course for Trump killing 250,000 Americans before the end of the year. In fact, maybe even before Election Day. I mean, these new numbers out, they're looking at the possibility of 300,000 dead Americans. And it'll only be 220,000 dead Americans if 95% of us wore masks, according to the most recent study. But this piece out of the Financial Times points out that Ebola, HIV, Zika, all of these are viruses that existed for millennia in the wild without coming into contact with human beings, and then hit the human population as a result of humans going into wild areas where there had not been humans before. And it's one of the reasons why we really do need to set aside large chunks of the world, maybe as much as a third of the world, certainly a quarter of the world, and say, these are areas we're going to protect. And instead, we're burning 6,000 acres of the Amazonian rainforest, every single hour. I mean, it's mind-boggling what's going on. But this is, they interview Aaron Bernstein, the director of the Center for Climate, Health, and Global Environment at Harvard University. He said the coronavirus pandemic is completely unsurprising. And by the way, this is why the Obama administration wrote a pandemic playbook. And it was literally called the Pandemic Playbook. They left it for the Trump administration. Trump threw it out. It's why they created two agencies, one inside the Department of HHS and one inside the national security infrastructure to deal with a pandemic. Trump closed those both down in his first year in office. Yeah, too much big government. We got to get rid of this big government. It's why the Obama administration did this, because we all saw this coming. First it was SARS, then it was MERS, well, it was HIV, and then Ebola, and then Zika, and it's just been going on and on and on. He says we swim in a common germ pool with other animals. If we stretch the fabric of life too far, things pop out of that germ pool and they land on us. And he said the issues at risk here are land use, deforestation. He said that's the single biggest driver for emergent diseases is deforestation. He said what this does when we cut these forests, it forces the animals carrying these viruses to find new habitats, increasing the chance of them spreading pathogens to other species, including humans. Now, that's part of the story. The other part of the story is that the planning for this pandemic that should have been done over the last 40 years, since we've known, since we figured out how this happened with AIDS, and we've seen, pandemic flu and things like that, deadly flus. This planning should have happened a long time ago. How do you prepare for a pandemic? Well, number one, you harden your public health infrastructure. You have national public health programs as well as strong state public health programs, and you richly fund them. We have instead been cutting programs for public health since the Reagan Revolution. It's part of the austerity program that has been promoted by neoliberals for the last 40 years. And number two, you have a national health care system. We're the only developed country in the world that doesn't have one. It's probably the reason why we're the only developed country in the world with an unemployment rate above 10%. And I guess that doesn't have quite so much to do with the healthcare system as it does with the fact that other countries are providing assistance directly to citizens rather than cycling it through big banks and giant corporations. But you get the point. But having a national healthcare system so that we can deal with this. I mean, there's some pretty straightforward stuff, policy stuff. And by the way, let's get more doctors and nurses out there. So let's get more people into college, and let's pay for it so that they don't you don't graduate with a nursing degree with a $70,000-$80,000 debt, or with an MD with a $200,000 or $300,000 debt. Let's build our resilience. Let's build our infrastructure. Let's strengthen the CDC, because this virus is not the last virus that this human race is going to encounter. Not by a long shot.